I got myself in huge heat from the Reddit mob there a couple of days ago because here's what happened. So I went into a deli for something to eat, a delicatessen as it's called in full. Anyway, and I asked for a spicy chicken fillet roll, and she proceeds to grab a southern fried fillet, and I told her that I wanted a spicy fillet, and she told me that what she had in her hand was indeed spicy. Now, let me back up a bit. In Scotland, we have what are called morning rolls, and these are common and the popular choice. It's what we get for our breakfasts and lunches. They're called baps in other places around Britain as well, but we call them rolls. But in Ireland, the common roll is the baguette. That's the most popular type of roll in Ireland. And the most popular combination of food that's bought nationwide in Ireland is a baguette roll filled with cut up chicken fillets, lettuce and mayo. And the chicken typically comes in 3 flavours. You've got your regular, southern fried and spicy. And the spicy one is noticeable because it has more of a red tint compared to the other two. Southern fried is lighter with lots of seasoning added to it as well. And then your plain one is just your plain one. So I went into this deli and I asked for a spicy fillet roll. She grabs the southern fried one, tells me it's spicy, and I'm trying to say, it's not, no, I want this one here. And then she proceeds, so I'm pointing at it. I'm pointing at this chicken. You know, it's right there in front of me, the colour of it, it's red. But she proceeds to tell me that that's the regular one. Now, I'm too polite. So I said, it's not a big deal. Because it really wasn't in the grand scheme of things. It wasn't a big deal. Okay, fine, I'll have the southern fried one. No problem. Call it spicy, whatever you want. And made up the roll. Sat outside, I ate it. It was delicious. But it still irked me, still annoyed me that she tried to tell me that what I had was a spicy chicken fillet roll when it was indeed southern fried chicken. We all know what southern fried chicken is. So I don't know why she was trying to throw wool over my eyes and tell me that this was not southern fried. So I do what I always do. I take to Reddit or Twitter and I have a little bit of a rant and then I move on. That's how I do my rant now. I do a passive-aggressive rant about something. That's me letting out my frustration, as it were. It's not nearly as dramatic as that. And then I go along with my business and then I forget all about it. I forget all about it. So I posted this little rant on Reddit, just having a little bit of a rant about how some deli assistants just don't know the difference between spicy and southern fried. And when I say that, I mean to say it's not just this particular deli that does this. Other delis do it as well. You know? So I've had this happen loads of times where I've said, can I get spicy? And they've given me southern fried. Now, I would be fine in the understanding of them calling it spicy if there was only 2 options. But there wasn't 2 options. There was 3 options. It's common that if there's 2 options, the southern fried one is typically regarded as the spicy one because there are technically spices on it. I get that, but when I'm talking about spicy, I'm talking about something that's going to lightly burn the tongue off me. That's what I want. The mayonnaise balances that out. I digress. So I took to Reddit and I had this little rant about how this deli assistant, she got the roll wrong, she got the chicken wrong, blah blah blah. I was just trying to make light of a already non-problematic situation. I was just shouting to the clouds. But then I forgot that emotions and tone of voice and mannerisms and dialect and the way we speak is not very well conveyed and well translated to text on a screen. And that was my biggest mistake. My biggest mistake was posting this on Reddit, an Irish Reddit, mind you. The Reddit is called r/Ireland. It's the Irish subreddit for talking all things Ireland culture. The baguette roll with chicken and lettuce and mayo being one of those many traditional things that Ireland takes for granted. So I post this complaint. and I leave it. And I go and do the rest of my morning shift. And here's the words that I wrote. I said, why do deli assistants not know the difference between spicy and southern fried? And then I proceed to paraphrase the exchange between me and the deli assistant onto this Reddit page. I said, chicken fillet roll please. What chicken do you want? Spicy please. She pulls out the southern fried. Oh no, I said spicy. This is spicy. No, that's southern fried. Yeah, that's the spicy one. And then I finished it off with saying, come on. As if to say, how do you not know the difference? Now, like I said, if I was to have this conversation with someone in person, they would get that it's a silly complaint, that it's not a big deal. It's, haha, what an idiot. Oh well, that's the way it is. You just get the thing and you move on. But that didn't convey very well. It didn't translate very well to text on a screen. Therefore, people misconstrued, misinterpreted what I said. And I basically got absolutely bulldozed on this thread. I got absolutely lambasted from top to bottom by almost everyone in the replies. And I semi-regret posting it because, again, the things I say, I was only having a laugh, but obviously that's just the way it is. But one of the replies, I'm just going to go through the replies. Someone said, why don't you go and make your own spicy chicken roll if you're going to be such a whiny bitch about it? Now, my response was, nah, I prefer to go into a deli and pay for one, and I should get what I pay for, so I'll be that whiny bitch. And to an extent, yes, I am correct in that. I am paying for a specific thing. I should get what it is I'm paying for, not an alternative to what's already there just because you can't tell the difference. That shouldn't be my problem. Again, it's not a big deal, but the more people that complained about me, the more of a big deal it started to look like, but I didn't see it as a big deal. Anyway, I digress again. So, I had people saying, I'm going to sort it by the most popular response, actually. That would help. And the most popular response was actually quite funny, to be honest. I actually found it quite funny. He said, hello, Gamerboy89, that's me. I'm a student with Trinity College Dublin, and I'd love to reference your post here in my dissertation about guys who were breastfed into their mid-20s. Do I have permission to reference your post? Thanks. And I said, go for it. And then someone else who took it a little bit more serious and personal, and he took it a little bit worse than what he could have, but he goes, you are an utter cunt if you talk to another human like this, let alone someone making your food. Now, again, this is the whole voice to text not translating very well. The tone of voice didn't come across the way I was expecting on text format, because he's quoting when I said, no, I said spicy. So he has it in his head that I stood there and, like, with a face like a slapped arse in a bad mood, and started just like saying, no, I said spicy. No, I didn't say that. I want spicy. No, that's not spicy. That's southern fried. I want spicy. He thinks I'm standing there with a dour face and an attitude problem. It couldn't be further from the truth. I love the people in this deli, in this shop. They're really nice to me, and I'm in there. I've been in there every morning for the past week and a half because of the new shift that I do. It's right next to that shop. I like to go in there and get my breakfast or my lunch, and they're all really friendly to me. They all know who I am, and it's only been a week. They recognise me immediately because I talk to them, I smile at them, I crack jokes, I make fun, I have a laugh. And I was kind of doing that with this woman with the spicy chicken. She was going, I said, can I get spicy chicken? And she's like, yep, here we go. And I'm like, oh no, that's southern fried. No, that's spicy. I'm like, okay, right, fine, southern fried. Not a big deal. I've been fine with that woman ever since. It's not a big deal. And someone said... Now, someone did stand up for me at one point. Someone said, in some places there's only the two, plain and southern, which can blow your face off for being overly seasoned. So if this place you go to has 3 types, the staff is not properly trained. Have a word with a manager. If they only have the first 2 types, they aren't wrong. It's the spicier of the 2 on offer. But my problem was that there were 3, and I wouldn't care if it was a once-off. But this has happened a couple of times in other shops, like I said. So the fact that this is happening again in another shop from a different county altogether, it's like, this must be more common than I think. It doesn't make it any less frustrating, but here we are. And I said everyone just to calm down about it. But they were going mental. I know I sound like I'm waffling on because I'm actively scrolling through this subreddit, this thread, and looking at all the replies and the like to dislike ratio. Now, I don't really give a shit about this kind of thing on Reddit because I don't take it offensively. I don't care. It's just interesting to look at, and it's a good example of how much they didn't like what I said. It's the like to dislike ratio is 21% of upvotes, which means 79% did not like that I wrote this, which is quite high. And yeah, basically, I lightly moaned about getting the wrong type of chicken on my fucking lunch, and everyone took offence to it. And I don't know if that's an Irish thing, being protective of their culture, in this case the chicken fillet roll, which is a very popular food item in this country. I don't know if that was that, or someone said that, oh, you shouldn't be that annoyed about someone making your lunch for you, blah blah blah, and I'm like, that would be different if it was my grandmother making me a sandwich out of the kindness of her heart. And I could never complain about that if she made me a sandwich out of the blue and said, here's a sandwich for you, son, enjoy it. That wouldn't be a complaint. It's when I'm going into a shop and I'm paying for a specific thing that I want and someone gave me something else. That would be like if I went into GameStop, for example. Now, this sounds like a bit of a stretch, but it isn't really. It would be a good example, though, I think. But hear me out. If I went into GameStop and I bought... I wanted to get... Okay, it's 2007, and I want to get Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and it's not on stock. They can't give it to me. They says, we have Saints Row. It's just like San Andreas, just a little bit different. We'll give you that instead. No, I'm paying for San Andreas. I don't want Saints Row. I want San Andreas. Do you get what I'm saying? Yeah, but it's the same thing. No, it's not. Again, that sounded like a bit of a stretch, and it probably was, but that's the first thing that came in my head. Everything's gaming related in my head. And unfortunately, I started this podcast off with yet another non-gaming related topic, and I apologise for that. But that's how this podcast goes. I've got to get something that bugs me off my chest. But at the end of the day, it was a lovely role. I enjoyed it. I was very happy. I've been there since. I'm really friendly to people. And to all those who complained about it, get a sense of humour. Lighten up, fuck off, it's not a big deal. Move on. And speaking of moving on, let's move on to the show. This is the GB Gaming Podcast. If this is your first time here, then welcome. I'm Dave, your host, talking to you on GB Gaming, where video games come first. Buzz Lightyear, the character we all know and love from the Toy Story franchise, is getting his own movie. And everyone's confused. People, like, the movie's called Lightyear. And the second I saw this trailer, I instantly knew what it was. Instantly. Like that. Because I know who Buzz Lightyear is. Because I watch Toy Story, and I have watched Toy Story a lot over the past, 22 years? Longer? 25 years? I've seen Toy Story so many times. So I know who Buzz Lightyear is. Now, people are puzzled by who this character is. Why is it set in the future? And why is he no longer a toy? Nobody's getting it. And I've seen so many confusing tweets about it, like asking, so what timeline is the Toy Story universe set in now? Because this movie's made me confused. How has it made you confused? Let me explain what Lightyear actually is. Buzz Lightyear is a fictional superhero within a fictional universe, that being the Toy Story universe. Buzz Lightyear is a known superhero like Superman to our universe, Buzz Lightyear is a known superhero in that universe. So he's well established as this fictional character that everyone knows of in the world of Toy Story. And with superheroes, there is merchandise. In the case of Toy Story, action figures. The Buzz Lightyear that we all know and love from Toy Story is an action figure of that fictional superhero that is established in the Toy Story universe. He is an action figure of that superhero. So, what we're getting is a movie about that superhero. We're not getting a movie about the toy. This isn't a Pinocchio situation where he has become a real boy, as it were. This is Buzz Lightyear the human, Buzz Lightyear the man. It's about his story. It's not set in the Toy Story universe. It doesn't work like that. The film Lightyear is not set in the Toy Story universe the same way Superman is not set in our universe. It's made up. And in the Toy Story universe, Buzz Lightyear is made up in their world. Get it? It's not that hard to explain, and maybe I'm over-explaining it. But basically, the Lightyear is the story about Buzz Lightyear the man that got action figures in the Toy Story universe, and ultimately in our universe as well, and that's probably where the confusion lies. I don't know. But yeah, it goes without saying who this is. And I personally cannot wait for it. I love Pixar. I love almost everything they throw out. I can't wait to watch this. And it begs the question, do you think we will get a film about Woody? People are debunking the idea of a Woody movie because they think that lore, as it were, has already been established in Toy Story 2, where he used to be a TV show hero. But that shouldn't stop Pixar from creating a film about Woody, the man, superhero. Do you know, the same way? Call it Woody's Roundup, but just make it more cinematic. Do you get what I'm saying? I would like to see a Woody movie. I'm all for it. But Buzz Lightyear is getting his own movie and it's coming out, I think it was June next year, I think it said. I can't remember, but it's definitely coming out around spring or summer 2022, and I'm definitely looking forward to going to see it. I'm all for it, so I can't wait. But everyone, calm your jets, you know, pull up your socks, or whatever the fucking expression is, just chill out, move on. Buzz Lightyear is about Buzz Lightyear the man. And then someone actually asked me, now that I remember, someone actually asked me, how do we know, how do you know that this is about the man and not the toy, or how did you know that Buzz Lightyear is a superhero within that universe? And I'm like, it's well established in the first movie. Like, from the moment we see Buzz Lightyear, we already know who Buzz Lightyear is, the man. And someone asked me to give an example because he can't remember. So that was the example I gave, was two examples or two situations where in Toy Story it's evident that he's based on a superhero in that universe. The first example, or the first instance, is where, obviously, we all know, famously, Buzz Lightyear the toy in Toy Story is deluded. He thinks he's real when he's not. And and within the first 10-15 minutes of introducing us to Buzz Lightyear, Woody is like befuddled. Like, he goes up to Buzz and he goes, "You actually think you're the Buzz Lightyear?" And that's the first instance of us knowing that Buzz Lightyear is an established character in that universe who's a superhero that has merchandise. And then the second instance is a lot more obvious, is when Buzz finds out, spoilers for Toy Story, is when Buzz finds out that he actually is a toy, when he comes to the realisation that he is a toy, by finding an advert being shown on a TV about the action figure Buzz Lightyear. And the trailer commentator says, "The world's greatest superhero, now the world's greatest toy." And that's it. That's how we know that Buzz Lightyear is an established fictional superhero within the world of Toy Story. It's a show within a show. Get it? Just like Itchy, it would be like if we got an Itchy and Scratchy movie. I don't know if we do, but it would be like if we did. If we got an Itchy and Scratchy movie, that doesn't mean it's set in the Simpsons universe. It's set in the Itchy and Scratchy universe, because Itchy and Scratchy is a show within the Simpsons universe. So it's the same idea almost, if not completely. So it's not that hard to understand, really. But I can't wait for Lightyear. Looks really good. And another thing I can't wait for is the Grand Theft Auto Trilogy Definitive Edition. I don't know why I didn't make a podcast purely just talking and regurgitating this, because I really wanted to talk about this when it was when the trailer came down. And the trailer is here, and the screenshots are here, and more screenshots have been shown, but the GTA Trilogy Definitive Edition is coming out as I speak right now. 4 days. It's coming out on Thursday the 11th of November 2021, and I can't wait. I've seen the trailer and it looks amazing. It looks amazing. Now, I can't wait for this. I've seen the screenshots, I've seen the trailer, and I know what we're getting in for. I know what this is. They've taken the original games and they've basically put a very heavily upgraded coat of paint over them, while retaining the visual style of what those games are, the aesthetic. They've just upgraded them a bit. And I'm fine with that, because that's what I want. But people are complaining about this. People have been complaining about it, and they're kind of still complaining about it, and I don't get it. I really don't. Maybe I'm tone deaf, I don't know, but here's an example of some of the complaints that I've been reading about this GTA Definitive Edition trilogy. People think that it's too expensive, and that it's between $60 and $70, which is basically between 20 and 23 euro a game, $23 a game. I disagree, because these games, in their original form, in digital form anyway, were about €15 maximum a pop, about maybe a tenner. I'll go and say €15. They were €15 a piece, and I think you could get the whole collection for €40 if I'm not mistaken, or €30. I think you could get all three of them for €30, and then yeah, so they were €15 a piece, and that was fine. Nobody complained about that. And then they came out with this, upgraded it, and made each game about £5 extra. Put them all together and say, here you go. But people don't want that. People think that's too expensive, because they think it's not big of an upgrade. Now, that's bullshit already, because it's not just the graphics that are being done up. Now, I'm going to pull this up from the GTA website. I'm going to pull up the information that they've given about this collection, provided I haven't already spoken about it. I might have already spoken about it, I could be wrong. Oh, I have spoken about it, but I can't remember. The details that were given are not exactly... weren't around until the trailer came out, I think. Anyway, I'm going to reread it anyway, even if I did already. But the Grand Theft Auto Trilogy Edition, Definitive Edition, is coming out on the 11th of November 2021, and people think that it shouldn't be 70, 60 quid, thinks it's too expensive, that it's just a stupid graphical upgrade and they don't deserve to be that price, and it's not big of an upgrade enough. Now, here's where I say you are wrong, because it's not, like I said, it's not just the visuals that they're upgrading. So here is a list of the improvements that they're putting into this Definitive Edition. Updated player experience, making it easier than ever to play these classic games, including Grand Theft Auto 5 style controller layout, which means exactly what it sounds like. We all know that the original 3 games, they play fine, but they don't translate well to modern muscle memory for playing these kind of games. You know, nobody wants to hold X or A to drive a car. Nobody wants to aim with R1 and press circle to shoot. Nobody wants to do that anymore. So they've tweaked that to make it play as if you're playing Grand Theft Auto 5, or at least as close to that as possible. With that, we have improved gunplay and targeting controls, with upgraded drive-by controls in San Andreas. We have updated weapon and radio station selection wheels, which means instead of pressing L2 or R2 to change your weapon, to cycle through each weapon until you get to the one you want, or when you're in a car, instead of tapping L1 or LB to change the radio station until you find the radio station you want, and God forbid you miss the radio station you want, you got to keep tapping it again until you get there. That's gone. We get the wheels. And if you've played Grand Theft Auto 5, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. When you're driving a car and you hold L1 or whatever button it is, the wheel comes up with all the stations, and you use the right analog stick to cycle to select the station you want, and then you let it go, and there you go. You change it, you just pull the wheel up again and move the right analog stick to the direction of where the other radio station is, and there you go. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. Same goes with the weapons. You hold L1 or whatever button it is, and you get to select your weapons immediately, and it's a very quick and easy process. You don't need to worry about cycling through. That's a big upgrade in my books, because it saves time. Updated minimaps with enhanced navigation, allowing players to set waypoints to destinations. Now, in San Andreas, that was fine. That was already there. You could put a waypoint there and you just follow the waypoint. But the way the waypoint system worked in San Andreas was you put the waypoint down and you would get to your destination basically as the crow flies. You know, there is no set direction to take, no quick route. You just had to figure it out for yourself. The waypoint system was basically to say, the location is here, find it, and it'll come up on the map, but you don't get a bar telling you what road to take or anything like that. I'm assuming that this is what they're going to put in to this trilogy. And the good thing about it is Grand Theft Auto Vice City did have a map, but you couldn't set waypoints. And when I say have a map, I don't mean a map on the screen, a radar. Yes, we do know that's there. But I'm talking about when you pause the game on San Andreas and Vice City, the map will come up on the screen, and you can navigate it within that screen. Grand Theft Auto 3, at least on the PS2, didn't have that. So this is a great addition to Grand Theft Auto 3, because not only are we going to be able to get a map, we can now set our waypoints in the same manner as the other two games will get as well, which will make anyone who hasn't played Grand Theft Auto 3 in a long time and are jumping into this for the first time, it makes it a lot easier to get around to locations without getting lost or without taking the wrong turn or wrong route. Personally, for me, it's not a problem for me. I know Grand Theft Auto 3 like the back of my hand, and it's like I know Grand Theft Auto 3 better than my own hometown. That's how well I know the map in that game. But it's great for those who are going to be starting the game up either for the first time or for the first time in years, and they don't know how to get around. This is a great addition for that. And also a great addition is the ability to immediately restart a failed mission. I believe I've already spoken about this before, but this is a great addition as well, because in Grand Theft Auto 3 and Vice City to an extent, and I suppose to San Andreas' extent as well, whenever you died during a mission or got busted or whatever, I'm going to use Grand Theft Auto 3 as an example because that's the one that has the least improvements. That's the base level Grand Theft Auto game out of these three. They have the most basic features, the most basic of everything. I'm going to use this as an example. So in Grand Theft Auto 3, when you die during a mission or you get busted, you will spawn at either the hospital or the police station, respectively, depending on how you met your maker. And if you wanted to restart the mission that you failed, you would have to steal a car, obviously, drive to the mission destination, often being where you first start the mission, right? Go to that location. And then you've got to skip the cutscene or watch the cutscene again, it's up to yourself. And then you begin the mission again. from the very beginning. And that was a pain in the arse because it padded it out a little bit. Because you could be doing a mission for so long and you could get near the end of the mission and then just die, and then you got to drive around and pick up the weapons that you might have lost again, reclaim all your weapons, because more often than not you will lose all of your weapons if you die on GTA 3. And you'd have to drive all the way around and do all this shit, whereas on this one, on the remastered definitive edition, if you die, you can immediately restart from this, just immediately restart from the menu or whatever it says. So it'll probably say like mission failed, continue or restart or quit or what, and that's how it works. And then they're also adding Rockstar Games Social Club accomplishments for members of the PC version, basically. So if you've got a PC and you're getting it on that, you're going to get the Rockstar Games Social Club version from the Rockstar launcher. And they've got achievements added to that. But I think it's going to get added to Steam eventually after. So if you're waiting for it to come on Steam, then you've got that at least. But I don't know if the achievements will transfer over. I don't know how it works. But those are the gameplay enhancements. Now here are the visual enhancements. Higher resolution textures from characters to weapons. Higher resolution textures from characters to weapons, vehicles to roads, and much more for greater detail. A completely rebuilt lighting system with enhanced shadows, reflections, and more. Improved water and weather effects. Enhanced details in trees and foliage. Increased draw distances to provide a new level of depth and definition. Now, screenshots have already been thrown out. We've seen them all. And I'm just going to take a quick look at all of these screenshots right now. So obviously this is a podcast, you're not going to see anything, but I'm going to do my best to describe it. So the first thing that that grabbed my attention was the look and style of Grand Theft Auto 3. The oldest of the 3 games. So that was the one I was looking to see would get the biggest visual upgrade because it's the oldest. And I'm just looking at it now. The lighting effects are top notch. I noticed that most of the game's screenshots are shown at night time. And I'm not saying I'm concerned. I'm just I'm a little bit concerned by how does the game look in the daytime? Will it stand out more in a jarring sense? Will it look worse in the daytime? Because let's be honest, when you play a modern game that has a day and night cycle and you play it during the night, the game is going to look better. Because not a lot is being shown. The lighting effects are more centre stage, as it were. And it's even more amplified when it starts to rain. And speaking of rain, I looked at the trailer, and there's a bit in the trailer where it shows you Claude from Grand Theft Auto 3 driving on the PS2 graphics style, and then it immediately switches to the remastered style. Looks gorgeous. Looks absolutely stunning. I can't wait to play this game, right? But I noticed the rain effects. Now, the rain looks good. But I noticed that, I don't know if it was just a visual illusion or if it was just the way I was looking at it, but the rain looked as if it was static. It was like 2D. It felt like it was falling, but it was following the player. Do you get what I'm saying? It didn't look dynamic, but that probably just have been the way I was looking at it. And if it does turn out to be just 2D rain, it's not a big deal. It really isn't. Just as long as it's not too jarring looking, I don't mind. Claude, the model of the main character, looks really good. He looks a lot more detailed than he did in the original Grand Theft Auto 3. And I love the way I don't know what it is, I just love his face. His face looks so fucking depressed. He just looks so fucking serious. But I like it. I like the way they've done his hair. His entire model looks like fucking plasticine, and I love it. I love it. Like, I love how stupid they look. And that's what I'm going to talk about, is the models of everyone in all 3 games. They all look like Pixar characters, and I love it, because they looked stupid in the original games. This is basically what I imagined them to look like if it was the exact same graphic or visual style with upgraded graphics. If they looked, this is what I'd imagined they would have looked like. Because they look stupid on both these versions. They look ridiculous. But you could say that I'm using this as an excuse or as a cop-out, but I don't care. Because I can't imagine they would have done any different. Because they said it themselves that we are remastering these games and making them look better while keeping the style. Which means you're going to get them in 4K, you're going to get the best lighting effects and the best visuals and the best graphics, but in terms of character models and cars and all that shit, anything that moves, it's going to retain the way it looked. We're just going to make it look more modern-ish. Do you get what I'm saying? Basically, the game isn't supposed to look photorealistic, and unfortunately, that is just not getting through people's head. People are complaining that not only are they complaining about the price, they're also complaining about the graphical style. People think that they look stupid, which they do, but it's deliberate. But people are saying that this is lazy. And I'm like, it's not lazy if this is what you want to do. I don't understand that mindset. If I wanted to create something deliberate, like that, you might as well just tell people that have made a 2D game that they're being lazy because they didn't make it 3D. You might as well just say that. You might as well say that I don't know, Grand Theft Auto 4 doesn't run at 60 frames per second on an Xbox One X because they're lazy. No, that's a bad analogy actually, because it could well be fucking laziness, because that game did not even get a single enhancement, but Red Dead Redemption did. Wow, I don't have an argument for that. Because the company that are developing these games, that's what's making me nervous. Because even though I'm really excited to play these, and I am, and it's going to take up my whole weekend, I'm nervous because of who's developing it. And the developer is Grove Street Games. And they went by another name before, because they used to work in the mobile market. They used to make games for mobiles or ports of games from console to mobile. But what they did was they created the Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City and San Andreas anniversary editions for mobile. And they were all fine. But they made San Andreas, which was fine on mobile, but then they ported that version over to the Xbox 360 and passed it off as Grand Theft Auto San Andreas Remastered, when it was just the mobile port, upscaled, and that was it. Well, yeah, controller support, I guess, but whatever. But the problem with that remaster is that it was an absolute glitchy, buggy mess. And the sad thing is, it still is. They never fixed it. To this day. It's been out for, 7 years? And it's still broken. And that has me a little concerned. Because I'm worried in case this game, this collection, is going to come out to high fanfare, because a lot of people are looking forward to this, and it's going to be another No Man's Sky / Battlefield 4 / Cyberpunk 2077 situation, where the game releases and it just doesn't work, or it's broke, or something's not right. I'm worried that that's going to happen. I really am. And it's frustrating me, because I am going to get this day one, and my conscience is telling me don't buy it day one, because what if it's broken? But I'm a chump, because I really, 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 really want to play this. In my head, I have my whole weekend planned out to play this. I want to play this collection, I really do. And I want to buy it day one, because I have faith in them to not fuck up a second time. You can't fuck up a second time. You can't. Especially when this is no longer a port job. You're making this for consoles first and then working on the mobile ports. They're coming out in 2022. So I don't want to give these complainers a reason to say this collection shouldn't have been made. I don't want to give these people a reason to say that this game sucks. Because I want this game to succeed so that they can all shut up. People say that it's a cash grab because they want to make a quick buck and tax nostalgia. That's bullshit. Well, it's not bullshit actually, because yes, it's a cash grab. Because of course it fucking is. What else is it? Of course it's a cash grab. Of course they're doing this just for... Yes, they are. And I want to buy it. You know? Because I said that myself. People are saying it's just a cash grab, and I'm like, well, they can grab all my cash. Because I want it. Of course it's a cash grab. You're damn fucking right it's a cash grab. But people are saying that this collection shouldn't exist because they're not working on GTA 6. Motherfucker, you idiot. No, that's not true. That is not true. Because the developers of this game, like I said, they're not the same developers working on Grand Theft Auto 6. That's Scotland's studio that's working on Grand Theft Auto 6. Rockstar North, or whatever they're called now. They're working on Grand Theft Auto 6. Not these guys. This is a completely different team. And that's the thing that people can't get their head around, that Rockstar is not a developer. Rockstar is a publisher that has developers making games for them from different studios across the world. And they're owned by Take-Two, which is Rockstar's parent company. And they have publishers everywhere who have developers everywhere making games. It's like a hierarchy. If you look at it, you've got Take-Two at the top, and beneath that you've got 2K, Rockstar, or whoever fucking else they own, and then beneath that you've got each developer of those publishers. And the developers of this game are not working on Grand Theft Auto 6, so you can just forget about that. Because what bugged me about that statement is that people would agree with that statement, and I think that's absolute fucking stupid. Because people seem to think that when Rockstar sends a developer out to work on one game, that halts the progress on any other game. They think that just because they were working on this, it means no work was being done on Grand Theft Auto 6. That is not how game development works. It really isn't. These companies have thousands of people working for them across all their development companies. They are a business. They are a fucking conglomerate. They have a lot of people working, making games. They aren't putting all of their fucking resources on one game at a time. It doesn't work that way. You know, that's why they have multiple developers. That's why companies buy developers. That's why publishers buy developers. That's why parent companies buy publishers, so that they can have more fucking companies to make more games, to make more money, to get more people invested. That's how it works. Or at least it's a heavy part of it. And nobody is getting that. But whatever. And the biggest complaint about this trilogy that I'm not understanding is that it's not a remake. It's not a remake. These games are not remade. And the people that wanted it to be a remake are angry that it's not a remake. But then there are people that are looking at it and expecting it to be a remake and thinking that they didn't do a better job on it. That the characters don't look realistic. And I'm like, because it's not a remake, it's a remaster. And someone said, but it is a remake. But it's not a remake though. How could it be a remake? It's the exact same games, with the exact same assets, with the exact same gameplay. The only major difference is quality of life improvements. Once you play this game, despite the control differences, despite how it looks, upgrade or otherwise, you know, despite all of the modern polishes, at its core, it's still Grand Theft Auto 3. It's still Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and it's still Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. They will still play at their core the very same. The same stories, the same characters, the same voice actors. Nothing is being remade from the ground up. It's better texture work, better lighting effects. You calling this a remake and saying it looks shit would be like calling Skyrim Enhanced Edition a remake of the original Skyrim, just because they did the same thing to Grand Theft Auto. And then people use the argument they should do what they did with Crash Bandicoot. Crash Bandicoot's a remake. They weren't remaking this trilogy. Crash Bandicoot has new assets, brand new gameplay mechanics. They're very different from what they were. Better sound, better audio, better everything. Everything was made from the ground up on that remastered trilogy or remade trilogy. And that's the problem. People, it's the marketing that are getting mixed up between remaster and remake. Now, I'm going to try my best to explain the difference between a remaster and a remake. I'll try my best. Here I go. So, there's a bunch of types of games that you can have that are in the form of re-releases. And they come in the form of remaster, remake, and reboot, and port. And we're going to try my best to differentiate each one. So I'll start with port. A port is a game that... A port of a game is basically the exact same game, just moved over to a different console. That's a port. So it's as simple as that. So I can get FIFA on Xbox, but I can also get it on PS5, PS4. That's a port. Porting over. Taking a game that was maybe once exclusive to one console and then bringing it over to another console is porting. It's the same process. It's the same game. No differences. Maybe a few differences in visuals and visuals and performance depending on the abilities of the console itself. So, for example, The Witcher 3 for the Xbox One X is a better port than the PS4 Pro, because the Xbox One X allows you to play the game in 1440 60 frames per second, I think. It allows you to play it in 60 frames per second, whereas the PS4 version doesn't allow that. You know, if you want to play the game in 60 frames per second, you need to play it on PC or play it on Xbox One X or above. So that's a port. A port is just the same game moved over to a different platform. A remaster is typically the same game upgraded to a newer platform. And when I say that, I mean they take the exact same game, no asset changes, nothing like that. They will upgrade the visuals in such a way where they just look better, and that could be texture enhancements. For example, like improving the resolution of textures. So, say the texture of a road or something. The texture of a road on the ground might look a certain way on PS2, but then when you bring it to PS3, the road looks a lot cleaner or something like that. Your assets have been upgraded in resolution, they look sharper, everything is in widescreen now instead of 4:3. Maybe increased draw distances or something like that. Better textures, upgraded lighting effects, but the base game, it remains exactly the same. Quality of life improvements, that's a remaster. It's still the exact same game with cosmetic changes and some mechanical changes that don't require to be made from the ground up. That's a remaster. A reboot is a tricky one. People get mixed up between reboot and remake. And I'll try my best to explain what a reboot is. A reboot is not necessarily... It's not a remake of a game for a start. A reboot is when you take a series of games, or a game, for example, and you basically start again. The clue's in the name. Reboot. What do you do with your computer when you need to start again? You reboot the computer, it turns off and it turns back on and it does something different. That's a reboot. A reboot, for example, would be Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider is a great example of a reboot. So you've got the story of Lara Croft from the PS1 era right through to the late PS2 era, going into the Xbox 360 era. You know, you've got Tomb Raider 2, 3, Last Revelation, Chronicles, Angel of Darkness, Legend, Underworld, Anniversary, which is the remake of Tomb Raider 1. Right? That story is all one big arc, or whatever. And then they go and make Tomb Raider, the 2013 game. That's a reboot because it's not the same Lara. It's a different Lara, different type of story, retelling of an origin story of Lara Croft. But it's still Lara Croft, it's still Tomb Raider, it's just rebooted, redone. It's not a remake, it's a reboot. Because if it was a remake, it would be the same story, it would just look different. And this is where I get into remake territory now. A remake is a game where you take a game that was out at a certain time and you remake it. When you remake a game, the story is the exact same. The characters, the exact same. The plot, the exact same. Everything is the exact same except the game itself. The way it plays, the way it's made. It's remade from the ground up. The story of Mafia. Mafia is a good example of a remake. Mafia is a game that came out in, I can't remember, but it's 2000 or something like that. But it came out at a certain time and it played a certain way. You know? It controlled a certain way. It looked a certain way. That game was remade last year. It has the exact, and the remake was remade from the ground up to be created for modern platforms. They didn't take the same game and touch it up. They created it from the ground up using the original game as a reference. Because it's the same story as the original, it's the same characters, it's the same missions, it's all the same except on how it looks, how it controls, how it plays, how it sounds, because it's all done from the ground up. That's a remake. Everything about these definitions are exactly what they are. They're exactly what they sound like. A remaster is exactly what it is. It's a remaster. You're touching up the same game to make it look better as much as possible. A reboot is when you're taking a series and you're starting again. A remake is when you're taking a game and you're creating it again from the ground up. And a port is just the exact same game moved over to another platform. And I hope I explained it the best way possible. Because that brings me back to the Grand Theft Auto Trilogy when I say that these games are remasters. Because it's the exact same games, the exact same story, the exact same gameplay, the exact same characters, everything's the exact same except how it looks and the quality of life fixes that they're adding in. They will still play the same. I'm assuming the animations for when characters use guns, drive cars, everything's going to be the same. It'll just be easier to play because they have upgraded the way that you can play them. And that is not remake territory because I did the same thing for the PC versions of Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City and San Andreas when I played them last year. I downloaded a mod that changed the coding or whatever it basically allowed you to play with dual analog sticks with different ways to fire your weapons and fire. It basically allowed you to play as if you were playing Grand Theft Auto San Andreas or Grand Theft Auto 5. You know? That's what that was. So if someone from the community can do that with already existing properties, then so can this developer. Because they weren't remaking it, they were remastering it, and that's the problem. People are going into this expecting a remake when they're not. That's why they look the way they do. If anything, the remastering job that they've done is probably too good. But we haven't really seen remasters of old games like this before. We haven't seen remasters of games like this very often where it's 2 or 3 generations away. Because I guarantee if Grand Theft Auto 3 was remastered for the Xbox 360, it wouldn't look that much different or that much better than Grand Theft Auto 3. Sure, it would look better, but it wouldn't be that much different in any other way. Think the Xbox 360 version of San Andreas, the one I was mentioning earlier, the mobile port that got ported over to the Xbox 360. That's a remaster of a game from a generation prior. That is typical of what that could look like in that time. But you're jumping 3 generations ahead in redoing and remastering these games. So you've got more tools. You've got better, modern tools at your at your control. So obviously the games are going to look 10 times better than what they did if they were ported on the Xbox 360, and that's where people are getting the confusion. Because they look vastly different in a way than the PS2 counterparts, people have this weird trickery going on in their head that says, it looks this good, why doesn't it look better? But it doesn't look better because it's not a remake. Because if you start changing the way characters move, and you start changing the way facial expressions look, and you start changing the way characters behave, you're jumping into remake territory. And that's why these games are not remakes. So you need to curb your expectations, and I personally think you're only angry because this isn't Grand Theft Auto 6. And that's all I've got. You know, this is my second rant in a row for my podcast talking about this trilogy and talking about people complaining about the game. When I said the last time, the only reason you're angry that Grand Theft Auto 6 isn't out is because you want Grand Theft Auto Online 2, you don't want Grand Theft Auto 6. And I'm saying it again, you don't want Grand Theft Auto 6, you want Grand Theft Auto Online 2. You know, this happens all the time. People will complain that something doesn't exist until it comes out, and then they'll complain that it's bad until the next thing comes out and it's vastly worse than the thing they were complaining about, and now the thing that they were complaining about is now being praised. The best example I can give of that is Halo. Halo 1 came out, brilliant game, sold loads of copies, excellent. Halo 2 came out, broke records, sold loads of copies, excellent. Halo 3 came out, the best in the series, sold loads of copies, excellent. The end of an era, the end of a trilogy, done. Halo Reach comes out, still in the same timeline because it's set between Halos 1 and 2 and 3 or whatever it is set. One of the best Halo games ever made, sold very well, done. Halo 4 comes out. Nobody likes it. Everyone hates it. It's the worst Halo game. Okay, fine. It sold fairly okay. Whatever. Halo 5 comes out. It's worse than Halo 4. Now people think that Halo 4 was underrated. And now Halo 6 or Infinite's on its way out, and people are praising it to the high heavens. What are they going to do next? What are they going to do next? When that game comes out and the story ends up being dog shit, are they going to go back and say Halo 5 was underrated? I'm stretching, I know, I get it. But when Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out and it's nowhere near as good as Grand Theft Auto 5 was, then that's on you. But at the same time, I think the reason why Grand Theft Auto 6 isn't still not being announced is because I think it's in development hell, and I think it has something to do with the Housers leaving. The Housers being the heads of Rockstar Games back then. I think they left, and I think that slowed down the developmental process of Grand Theft Auto 6. I also heard a rumour that Grand Theft Auto 6 was supposed to be announced in 2020, and it never did. So, God knows when that game's going to get announced. My prediction is it could be announced next year, but I'm going to hold my hands up and say that I'll be wrong and not put my hopes up. But, whatever. Like I said, I couldn't give a fuck if Grand Theft Auto 6 never came out, because Grand Theft Auto 5, to me, mechanically, from a gameplay perspective, like, it's the perfect Grand Theft Auto game, and I hate to say it, but it's the perfect Grand Theft Auto game. It plays the best. It's the best Grand Theft Auto game, because that's peak Grand Theft Auto in my books. Even though Grand Theft Auto 3 is my favourite, Grand Theft Auto 5 is the best Grand Theft Auto game, and I don't know how they can improve on that. I don't know how they can improve on that. But we'll wait and see. But yeah, going back to the Grand Theft Auto Trilogy website and just basically ogling at all the screenshots, I think it looks fantastic. I think it looks good. And the third set of information about the game is platform-specific features, including 4K resolution support with up to 60 frames per second performance for PS5 and Xbox Series X. Now, being an Xbox One X owner and a PS4 owner, or PS4 Pro owner, I'm not going to experience the 60 frames per second in 4K, but I'll at least get it in 1440p if I'm not mistaken. So if I'm really, really wanting to play those games at 60 frames per second, I'm going to have to drop the resolution a bit. But I'll see near the time. I played these games at 30 frames per second most of my life, so it's not a major sacrifice to me to play this game in 30 frames per second in 4K. I'm all for it. NVIDIA DLSS support for PC. I've heard about this. I've heard about DLSS, and from what I can gather, from what I know about it, now my graphics card isn't capable of it because I've got a GTX graphics card. These are compatible with RTX graphics cards, the NVIDIA DLSS support. And I don't know what it stands for, but what I think it does is it's a type of super sampling, if I'm not mistaken. And what it does, according to this article on tomshardware.com, it says DLSS stands for Deep Learning Super Sampling. It's a type of video rendering technique that looks to boost frame rates by rendering frames at a lower resolution than displayed and using deep learning, a type of AI, to upscale the frames so that they look as sharp as expected at the native resolution. For example, with DLSS, the game's frames could be rendered at 1080p, making higher frame rates more attainable, then upscaled and output at 4K, bringing sharper image quality over 1080p. This is an alternative to other rendering techniques like temporal anti-aliasing, or TAA, a post-processing algorithm that requires an RTX graphics card and game support. Games that run at a lower frame rate or high resolutions benefit the most from DLSS. So, it's basically what the PS4 Pro does when you are playing on a 1080p TV, for example, and you want to play a game and you want to play the game in 4K resolution. You use what's called super sampling, and what that does is that it takes the game and it increases the game's resolution or something like that. It's a type of super sampling, but it tanks performance as a result. If it doesn't improve performance. Like, if you wanted to have better performance on a PS4 Pro with 1080p TV, don't turn on super sampling. Turn that off and your performance will improve because it doesn't need to render any more pixels or something like that. I think that's how it works. But with DLSS, it does the opposite. It brings your resolution down for the game which means it upgrades the performance, but then it does this trickery that makes it sharper to make it look almost just as good as 4K does. So you're getting the benefit of thinking you're looking at a 4K image when you're not, and getting the performance increase at the same time. That sounds like a great fucking thing. I would always love to get a graphics card that does that. Sorry, I've got acid reflux. I would love to get a graphics card that does that, but... And it's not just like... It's not a small, neglectful upgrade either. I'm looking at a picture here of... I don't know what game it is, but... The game in question, with DLSS turned off, is running at 1080p with an RTX graphics card and with the highest graphics settings, and it's running at 42 frames per second. But when you turn DLSS on, it does some sort of trickery where it lowers the resolution but then sharpens the image, arguably making it look better than what it did before, and now it's running at 74 frames per second. I think that's incredible. So I would actually almost love to get an RTX just to do that, because there's a lot of games on PC that I've got a 1440p monitor, but I can't really play my games in 1440p because it just slows them down. That's why I've got a 1080p TV sitting next to me, because I mostly play my games with a controller anyway on PC. So at the very least I can utilise the power of my graphics card and play my games in 1080 and not have to worry about frame drops. I digress. But yeah, that's what the Grand Theft Auto Trilogy is going to allow for. So if you've got a PC with RTX, you're going to get the best way to play these games. And that's not all with the Grand Theft Auto Trilogy. It's also coming to Switch, as we all know. And with that, you're going to have touchscreen camera zooming, pans and menu selections, as well as gyro aiming for the Nintendo Switch. So taking advantage of the Switch's gimmicks, as it were, I'm all for it. And that's basically all the info I've got on the Grand Theft Auto the Trilogy, the Definitive Edition. Now, I don't know if I said all of this on the prior episode of this podcast. It's been about 2 or 3 weeks, so I really couldn't say. But what I will say, though, is that new screenshots have been released on top of the ones that were shown around the time this trailer came out. And I have to say, the games are looking very good. I can't wait to play them. And I don't care if it ends up just not being... If I'm being visually tricked and thinking that these games are not going to look as good as what we've been shown, and I'm going to end up seeing visual kinks, I don't really care. Because at the very least, I'll be playing these games in the best way possible, with the modern control scheme and all the modern quality of life fixes that they've put in. I'm getting to play these games natively on a modern console instead of playing a port from an older console. Do you get what I'm saying? So I'm basically getting to play Grand Theft Auto 3 on Xbox One. The Xbox One / PS4 version of Grand Theft Auto 3 will be in my hands come Thursday. It's not a PS2 version. It's not an Xbox original version. It's not even a fucking port. These are remasters. And I can't wait. I really can't wait. And I've gone on long enough about it, so let's move on to the next topic, and that is Nintendo again. Specifically, the expansion pack. And I've got a mouthful here because as I was writing up the notes for this on a daily basis, more news kept coming out, and then the biggest news came out during last week, and I'll get to that. So here we go. So we all know the Nintendo Switch expansion pack online is finally here, and it got off to a rocky start. Complaints left, right and centre, particularly on the N64 offerings. You know, so much problems, man. Nothing goes right. Nothing ever goes right with Nintendo. So, I'm pulling this from Game Rant. and it's ridiculous. So it says, the Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack went live on October 25th, allowing upgrading subscribers to have access to a select number of classic Nintendo 64 and Sega Genesis titles. Unfortunately, subscribers are reporting numerous issues with the games provided, making for an underwhelming launch, with plenty of fans disappointed with Nintendo. There are currently a multitude of issues with the service across many of its games, making it hard to nail down what Nintendo should be tackling first to fix. The major problems players are citing are things like low frame rates, input lag, sound effect delay, and texture problems, to name just a few. What's more, the Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack doesn't allow players to remap the default button layout for the controller. This presents a huge issue for many reasons, as the Nintendo 64's controller didn't have a traditional button layout, so the one provided for its titles doesn't make a whole lot of sense. For starters, the A and B buttons are flipped when mapped to the Joy-Cons, and the yellow C buttons are halfway mapped to X and Y face buttons, while the rest require the player to hold down another button to use them. This wouldn't be such a big problem if Nintendo simply allowed players to remap the buttons themselves so that they can figure out what layout works best for them, but no such option is available at this time. According to a thread on Reset Era, many fans are disappointed with the expansion pack, but some aren't entirely surprised. While many aren't surprised by the expansion pack's poor performance, there was some hope before it was released that Nintendo was putting in a lot of work to make the Switch the definitive place to play some of its older titles based on the controversially high price of the expansion, but that clearly isn't the case. Despite only being available for several hours, many upgrading Switch Online subscribers are already voicing their regret for purchasing the expansion and asking Nintendo to fix the product. Unfortunately, there isn't much history of the company providing major updates on its online services, but it seems like the general consensus on the expansion pack is negative, so if the outcry is loud enough, Nintendo might address the controversy. And speaking of if the outcry is loud enough, if you go onto YouTube and you look at the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack trailer, you will see that it has 1.3 million views with 18,000 likes and 167 dislikes. Now, to the untrained eye, you could easily pass that off as, oh, it's only YouTube, who cares? But everyone watches YouTube, and that number isn't good. Apparently, it's Nintendo's most disliked video on their channel. And this sucks. This really, really sucks. So, Mario, it's mostly N64 titles that people have a problem with, but there's other problems as well. Now, Mario suffers input lag. Zelda has bad visuals compared to other ports. Badly mapped controls. And it sucks because I was looking forward to playing Zelda on a TV instead of via handheld. The next best option I have is to either play the 3DS port that I already have, or fork out the money to buy the legitimate cartridge. If I do that, I'll need some sort of upscaler if I'm going to want these games to look half decent on a 55-inch OLED. And I can hear you saying already, why don't you just play the 3DS port if you already have it? My issue isn't that I don't like the 3DS port. My issue is that I struggle to keep my attention on handheld consoles, the Switch included. You know, I do like playing my Switch in handheld mode, but I prefer to play it on TV mode, because I somehow get easily distracted when I play games in any handheld capacity. Like, I'll have to have a think about it, because I can either play the 3DS port and try my best to not get swept away from it, or I can fork out money to buy the Nintendo 64 version of the game, the legit real copy, which is going to be an issue for me because I'd have to import it because my N64 is an NTSC version. It's a United States console. It's an American one. And as such, if I want to get games for it, I need to import the American games, the American copies. And that costs money. That costs a lot of money. And Zelda isn't fucking cheap. So that's one option. And then I would have to get an upscaler, which means I would have to find some way to have these games look good on this TV. And that's hard to do because upscalers are fucking expensive as well. So that's a brick wall. So I either have to suck it up and play the 3DS version, fork out that amount of money for a fucking real version, or just pray to fucking Christ that Nintendo will fix these problems and that we will have a playable set of N64 games that aren't broken beyond repair. Now, that sounds like a bit of an exaggeration. They're not broken beyond repair. They're just bad ports. They're just bad ports. And this is what I was talking about earlier on with porting. What does a port of a game mean in regards to differences between each version? Some of them will look worse on other consoles. And this is an example of games looking worse on other consoles. The most confusing part about it is that this is on a modern console that should be able to run these games perfectly well. They don't need to be upgraded visually. They look fine for what they are, just make them sharper, but don't touch the goddamn fucking textures and leave the controls alone. Unfortunately, Nintendo didn't get that memo because they don't listen. Now, I'm not too bothered by Mario 64 being a bad port because I already have the 3D All-Stars collection on Switch, and while it's not a perfect port on the All-Stars collection, it's still better than what's been offered here. Other games seem to work well for me, but I haven't heard any reports, and to be honest, I think I'll keep it that way because if I find more bad things, like if I find more bad reports, I'll end up noticing them. Now, I never owned an N64 growing up, so this is basically my first game getting to play most of these games. Like, if there are any major differences between these ports and the originals, I'll likely not notice that much because I don't have anything to compare it to since I never played them originally. But because I've seen the screenshots of Zelda, which is the one I was looking forward to playing the most, it just had to be Zelda that looks the worst. It just had to be Zelda that's the worst port. Just had to be that game. Typical. But there are games I am enjoying on the service. Star Fox 64, that's really fun. Yoshi's Story is quite fun as well. You know, it's a cute side-scrolling platformer, quite easy, quite challenging at times as well, but it's fun. I even gave Mario Kart 64 a try, and I found the controls to be fantastic. The steering felt really smooth. I was pleasantly surprised. And even more surprised to find out that Mario Kart 64 has aged rather well, especially in the control department. The fact that it utilises analog steering makes it a joy to play. I really like this iteration of the series. That sounds stupid to anyone who's already played Mario Kart 64 and owned a 64 growing up, but I didn't. And analog control was not something I used until the early 2000s. Not until I was 13 did I decide I'm going to start using the analog sticks to play my games. I was a digital guy. I played games with the D-pad almost exclusively through most of my early childhood and growing up to being a teenager. So if I had an N64, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it back then because I didn't like analog controls. I would have been confused. But now I have an appreciation for it, and the controls of Mario Kart 64, in fact the controls of any of these games from a movement department have aged very well. They're very snappy for being games that are over, 30 years old now at this point? And I didn't forget about the Mega Drive games either, as I also tried out a couple of those titles from that collection as well. Streets of Rage 2 and Sonic 2 were very responsive and I didn't see any visual mishaps. I did have one complaint regarding the audio though. It didn't sound as crisp as it did on the original hardware. Not a huge complaint, but Like, when you've played these games for almost 30 years, you tend to notice the smallest changes and differences. And it doesn't take away from the enjoyment, though, as they're still fun to play. They still play wonderfully. Like, whenever I played emulated versions of these Sega titles, I always used Streets of Rage 2 and Sonic the Hedgehog as my test subjects. The original versions, obviously, have flawless input response, and I'll always notice a difference when I play them in another format. And I was thoroughly disappointed with the ports found in the Sega Mega Drive collection that was released on Switch. So, when I go back and I play these versions on the Nintendo Switch Online, they play wonderfully. And these could be the new ways for me to play these games if I ever decide to go back and play them. I know I have a Mega SG, but with the inclusion of the ability to play in a handheld format, despite the fact I said it's not my favourite way to play, at least I have that option, and at least I can play those games that way. I don't hate playing games in handhelds, I just want to make that clear. I don't hate playing games in handheld. I do enjoy it, but I can't hold the Switch in a handheld format. It makes my hands cramp up, and if I've got nothing else distracting me, then I might extend my time on it. But if I'm sitting in something like the living room or a cafe or anything that's got things going around, I'll get distracted. Or if my phone goes off, I'll get distracted. But if I'm sitting in a dark room with a big TV in front of me and headphones on, nothing can distract me. That's why I don't play in handheld mode that often. But that's why I went and bought a grip for my Switch. My Switch Pro controller. It's a grip that attaches itself to the Switch Pro controller, and it holds your Switch console as well. So and it's really nifty as well. So I get to hold a gamepad on the Switch while still playing it in a handheld format, and it's much more comfortable that way. It tricks my brain into thinking that I'm playing with a controller, which I am, but you know what I mean. So it doesn't feel handheldy, if that makes sense. And it's really comfortable. So that was why I bought it, so I could see if it was maybe a visual, like a psychological thing. That's why I decided to buy the controller, in case it was like a psychological trick in my head, or a placebo, thinking that playing in handheld is the reason why I got so distracted. So if I got a controller, it makes me think that I'm playing it premium. It sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud, but it makes sense in my head. But going back to the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack, do I think it's worth €40 a year? As is, no, I don't. Some ports are not well crafted at all. And if you're not interested in Animal Crossing, all you're going to get are a handful of games, and some of them you can't enjoy properly due to the aforementioned issues. Thankfully, I only paid €30 for mine, because I got a discount from having 4 months left on my account. I had €3 in my Nintendo wallet, and I had 100 coins on my Nintendo account that I was able to convert into €1. So I feel like I got my money's worth in that regard. But by the time October 2022 rolls around, what will it look like? Will they improve it? Will they fix the issues? Will anything be added to the service? That remains to be seen. With the Animal Crossing DLC being available with the subscription as well, I wonder what else they'll attach to it in terms of DLC. Personally, I'd prefer full games in the form of Game Pass, but as we all know, Nintendo will do Nintendo. They'll do their own thing. And if that means putting a yearly tax on nostalgia, then they'll keep doing it. I'm part of the problem, I get it, but that's on me. I wanted to play these games and I gave them the benefit of the doubt, so yeah, I'm not the only person that regrets paying for this. I'm not the only person that's disappointed, so you can't look at me and say you shouldn't have. That's hindsight. Obviously, we're looking at that now and thinking we shouldn't have bought the subscription. But when people are sitting there telling me, oh, we told you it wasn't worth it. No, it wasn't worth it to you because you didn't think it was worth it paying that much money to play Nintendo 64 games and Sega games as well as Animal Crossing DLC because you don't have Animal Crossing. It wasn't worth it to you because you're not interested in those games. Now it's not worth it because half the service doesn't work properly. The games are horrible versions. Now it's not worth the money to a lot of people because these games don't work right. Now, has Nintendo responded to this? Because I did these notes about 2 weeks ago. About a week ago, actually. And I want to know, did Nintendo respond to this? Yes. Yes, they responded. And they said, if I could just pull it up, Nintendo promises to improve and expand the Switch Online service. The publisher says it is striving to provide services that satisfy customers. This was posted on the 5th of November. Remember. Anyway, Nintendo has said that it will continue to improve and expand on its Switch Online service as well as its recently released premium expansion pack, possibly in response to the poor reception to its pricing and recent additions. As part of its latest corporate management briefing, Nintendo has stated that it will, quote, continue to improve and expand both Nintendo Switch Online and the expansion pack, end quote, in order to provide services that satisfy its fan base. The pledge to improve comes shortly after the company experienced a rocky start to the launch of its premium expansion pack subscription service. The service, which launched last month, adds a new membership tier to Nintendo Switch Online that gives players access to an expanding catalogue of N64 and Sega Mega Drive games, as well as paid DLC, currently in the form of Animal Crossing New Horizons Happy Home Paradise Pack. However, following its release, Nintendo received backlash from some of its fanbase, who reported that they were experiencing a number of issues with classic games running on the handheld. Complaints from the community varied from player to player, however. Most commonly seemed to revolve around the issues with input lag, sound delays, frame rate, and incorrect controller layouts. Nintendo doesn't specifically mention the backlash as the reason for its comments on improving the service. Despite taking some criticism over the launch of the premium tier subscription service, elsewhere in the briefing, Nintendo announced that it has seen an overall increase in the number of players subscribed to Nintendo Switch Online this past year. The publisher stated that the number of players accessing its online services had now exceeded 32 million, a figure up 6 million from this time last year. It isn't particularly surprising to see that this figure has increased across the last year, considering the continued popularity that Nintendo has been. Oh, okay, hold on a minute. Blah blah blah. Okay, this is just numbers now. And that's another thing that's bugging me as well. They're sitting there saying, oh, I will improve it, I improve it. Oh, by the way, did you know that we've went up in sales 6 million times more? Big deal. Not sales, players. Like, what is that? Is that damage control or what? Yeah, we'll fix our Switch Online expansion service. Yeah, we'll do that. But did you know that we now have 36 million players subscribed to our service? Oh, whoopity-doo. Whoopity fucking do. Now, here's where I say that I don't believe a word Nintendo's saying about this. I really don't believe them, because from what I've heard, Nintendo doesn't like changing things. They don't like fixing things, and they don't like promising things either. They do their own thing, and they do it when they want, how they want. You know? The 3D All-Stars collection was going to be a timed thing. It was a temporary sale. It was going away on March 31st, even though it was announced in October or thereabouts last year. And they announced that it was going to end sales of this collection on March 31st, both digitally and physically. And when they announced that, everyone gave them backlash for it. And Nintendo didn't listen. They went ahead and they still cut sales of that product after March. The only way you can get the Mario All-Stars 3D collection in an official format is to hopefully buy it new on eBay or Amazon. Otherwise, you're buying from resellers. And over the years, those games are going to get even more expensive. But Nintendo will Nintendo. They'll do what they want, whenever they want. They won't fix this. Apparently, this isn't the first time they've made bad ports of games that they didn't fix. Apparently, the Wii U version of Zelda Ocarina of Time, unless I'm thinking of a different game, wasn't that great a port either, and they never fixed that. Now, here's my problem. Nintendo are using software emulation to run these games. Okay? Now, that sounds fine on paper, because they've done it with the Switch, the Super Nintendo, the Sega Mega Drive, and on the Wii U, they've done it on the Virtual Console with TurboGrafx 16, with Game Boy Advance. Software emulation is what they do. But there's something different about software emulation when it comes to the Nintendo 64. The Nintendo 64 is notorious for being a bastard to emulate. It's a very difficult platform to emulate, no matter how good your computer is. Project 64, arguably the biggest emulator for the platform, doesn't run every game very well. A lot of problems come from running those games on that emulator. N64 is not very well emulated. Yet Nintendo still put a version of, I think it was Project 64 or whatever the fuck it was, they put an emulator, a public domain emulator, on the Nintendo Switch Online and passed it off as, here it is, here's the Nintendo Switch version of these games. No. You need to do better, Nintendo. I don't know how you're going to fix this, because even the most knowledgeable person in the emulator community couldn't tell you how to run these games well. So how the fuck are you supposed to do it? I'll be shocked if they're able to fix it. But if they can at least fix The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, I will be satisfied, because I really want to play that game on a large TV. At the moment, I'm currently playing it on the 3DS, and it's fun, but I get tired of it easily. I'll play it for an hour, and then I'll jump out, and then I won't play it again for another day, and then I'll bounce out of it again after another hour, because I've got a bad attention span when it comes to playing games in a handheld format. I can't help it. The only way I'll be able to stick myself to that game is if I can play it on a big TV. Now, I don't know any better, really, in the grand scheme of things. I never played the original version of Zelda Ocarina of Time, so I didn't know what I was comparing it to. If I hadn't have seen those screenshots, and if I hadn't have seen the reports, and I had just jumped into that game straight away, I think I would have been fine, because I've got nothing to compare it to. I had nothing to complain about. It was until I saw those complaints where I realised, oh, so this is what it should be like. Well, that's not good, because I don't want to play it this way anymore. I want to play it the way it should be played, because I'm going to end up running into problems with it, with the button mapping. And that's another thing as well. What if the only thing that Nintendo fixes is the button mapping? Because that's not the biggest problem. It's a huge problem, but it's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is how well these games are ported, which isn't very well at all. But, like I said, Nintendo will Nintendo. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's hilarious that Sega, the games on that, the Sega games run better than Nintendo 64 games. I can't believe in 2021 I'm coming back and saying again, Sega does what Nintendo don't. Now, it's been almost an hour and a half, and I think I'm done. I know the news stories that I was talking about weren't that big, and I really wanted to talk about the Nintendo issue, and I just hope that it gets fixed. I really do. But as it stands, we don't know. So I haven't done this in a while. I'm going to list out games that are coming out in November. A few games that I'm actually quite looking forward to, but there is one in particular that I've already mentioned it, but I just cannot fucking wait. So here are the games that have already came out in the last week or two. So, Giants Uprising, which is a Steam Early Access title, was released on November the 2nd, as well as World War Z on Switch, Conway Disappearance at Dahlia View, which is on pretty much everything, Time Loader on PC came out on November 3rd, Just Dance 2022 came out on everything on November 24th, Where Cards Fall came out on PC and Switch on November 4th, Call of Duty Vanguard released on November 5th, Kid Amnesia Exhibition came out on November 5th on PS5 and PC. Forza Horizon 5. Now this is a tricky one. This is a really tricky one. Forza Horizon 5's official release date is apparently November 9th. But on November 5th, you as of November 5th, you can buy that game for about £100 if you want. Or you can buy an upgrade if you are a Game Pass subscriber for about £40 or something like that. So the game is technically out. You can buy it and you can play it. But for any normal chumps like me, I have to wait until November 9th. That begs the question, how does that work? If you set your release date to November 9th and then you have it to be purchasable earlier, surely that earlier release date is the release date. So the game is out, but you're gating it from people who want to either buy it normally or use Game Pass. I don't understand that. I don't care that it's out, but don't tell us that it's not out until November 9th when it's clearly out. That's all I'm going to say. Moving on. Here are more releases. Blue Reflection Second Light, PC, PS4, PS5 and Switch is coming on November 9th. Clunky Hero, Steam Early Access, PC, November 9th. Jurassic World Evolution 2 is coming out on pretty much everything except Switch on November 9th. Really loved the original Jurassic World Evolution, actually. I did not realise that the second one was coming out so soon. Synthetic 2, which is a Steam Early Access title, is coming out on November 11th, as is Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy, the Definitive Edition, releasing on PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, coming digitally on November 11th, and almost a month later, physically on December 7th. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Anniversary Edition, releasing on pretty much everything, on November 11th, which is a free upgrade for the extra visual enhancements if you already have Elder Scrolls V Skyrim on PS4 and Xbox One. You will get free access to the upgrade to PS5 and Xbox Series X if you already own it. If you want to pay an extra £20, you will get extra creation suite stuff. I don't know what it is, but you get extra items if you upgrade using the £20. Shin Megami Tensei 5 for Nintendo Switch is coming out on November 12th. Game & Watch The Legend of Zelda releases on November 12th. Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1 releases on November 16th. The Waylanders releases on November 16th. Moncage, whatever that is, releases on November 16th. The Last Stand Aftermath releases on November 16th. A lot of games releasing on the 16th of November. And then, again, Battlefield 2042 is doing that same thing that fucking Forza Horizon 5 is doing, where it's coming out on November 12th for early access, but coming out 5 days or 6 days later, or 7 days later, a week later, worldwide. Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl releases on Switch on November 19th. Re-Legend releases on November 21st. Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker is releasing on November 23rd. I think that game was delayed. I'm not sure. I could be wrong on that. I'm not entirely sure. I'm nearly sure that game recently got delayed. Yes, it got delayed to December 7th. So it's coming out on December 7th. Apparently the developer of that was really upset about it. Yeah, the director or something like that, they were really upset that they had to delay the game. I don't know why he got so upset about it. Game delays happen all the time. I don't know the context to it, but I'm looking at a picture of him now. He's really cut up about it. That's not nice. I don't know if it's guilt or... Yeah, it says here, it's an incredibly minor delay, but Yoshida, who's the director of the game, was deeply apologetic regardless, and even appearing to get teary-eyed during a live stream breaking the news. He's probably seen, this is my ignorant take here, but he's probably seen what happens when games get delayed, and what the behaviour of people when they hear of these delays. They get really vitriolic and angry and abusive on Twitter and the likes and YouTube and all that, and they get really angry about it. And he's probably worried in case that happens. He doesn't want that to happen, so he's after getting fucking upset about it. I'm probably wrong. I don't know why he got so upset about it. It's only an extra couple of weeks. It's not a big deal, but stay healthy, man. Anyway, more games coming out in November. Evil Genius 2 World Domination releases on everything on November 30th. Beyond a Steel Sky releases on everything November 30th, as does Clockwork Aquario releasing on November 30th as well. And that's pretty much all the games releasing in November. Obviously, the only one I'm really looking forward to is the Grand Theft Auto Trilogy. Highly anticipated. Probably my most anticipated game of the month. Or year. I don't know. But I can't wait to play it anyway. So that's all the releases. Do with it what you will. Play whatever it is you want to play. I also want to point out that DLC wasn't included in this list because that's obvious, but the Animal Crossing New Horizons Happy Home Paradise, whatever it's called, is out now as well. It released the same date as the Switch Online expansion. Nope, I tell a lie. It released on November 5th. And I haven't played it yet, but I have touched the version 2.0 update that came out about 2 days before it, which was actually 2 days too early. I played a bit of that, and I've barely touched it. I've still got things to do on it, but I like what they've added. I've looked up a list of things that they've added, and they've added a stack ton of features on the update alone. So I'm actually really looking forward to seeing what they've added to the DLC. So I'm happy to report that I'm back playing Animal Crossing for another while, but I'll get to that on my what I'm playing list, which is what I'm going to get to now. So here's what I've been playing. So I've got this thing that I do quite often, and it's a horrible habit, but I have a habit of, if I'm anticipating a game that's coming out really soon, like I'm so excited for a game, I will struggle to stick to any other game because I don't know how long it's going to take me to beat these games. So at the moment, I'm pretty much just playing anything for a short period of time. So I thought to myself, what's the best game to play where I can play it in small bursts, I don't need to beat anything, and I can have a lot of fun doing it. And obviously I've got Zelda on the 3DS. I've been playing that occasionally when I've got downtime and work. That's how I've been able to play that. I've been playing, as I said, Animal Crossing. I've been back into playing that because the new update and the new DLC that's after coming out. I haven't played the DLC yet as I do this episode, but I do plan on it at least before Wednesday or Thursday. So I've been playing that and those, and I've also been... So yeah, what's the best game to play in a small format without having to worry about progress or anything like that? Call of Duty. I'm back playing Call of Duty, not Vanguard. Not Vanguard. No, I'm playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare because I really don't see a reason to buy Vanguard just yet. I'm happy with what I've got at the minute. So I've been playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare online. Nothing special on the game. I'm not doing Warzone. I'm not doing any major fucking events. I'm just playing classic team deathmatch, 12v12. It's fun. I'm enjoying myself. That's what I've been playing the last couple of days. My fiance's been playing with me when she's got time as well. So I'm having a lot of fun playing that. And that's basically all I'm going to play up until Thursday. Well, save for Forza Horizon 5. I really do want to get that's out in 2 days. So that's out on the 9th of November. So I will be playing that as well before Thursday. just to see what that game's like. I've heard good reports that it runs very well and looks really good no matter what console you play. I've heard someone saying that Forza Horizon 5 looks amazing even on a base Xbox One. So that looks good for me, someone who owns an Xbox One X. So I'm really excited to see how it looks on a 4K TV. I've seen the comparisons. The obvious comparisons are there with the Xbox Series X in that it does ray tracing, 4K 60 frames per second, all the usual dense foliage that they're able to add to it, stuff that I'm not really annoyed at missing out on, but I appreciate what they're able to do with the Xbox Series X. But looking at the Xbox One X version, it still looks really good, so I'm really happy that they've maintained that and that they've not nerfed it in any way. It looks good. I don't care about ray tracing because I don't exactly know what it is until I see it. I don't want to see it because I'll end up getting annoyed that I don't have it. So that's what I'm going to be playing on Tuesday, and then obviously I'll be jumping into the GTA Trilogy on Thursday, and that'll be me set for at least another week if I can get into those games. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is. But we have now come to the end of this episode of the GB Gaming Podcast, and if you enjoyed this episode of the GB Gaming Podcast and you want to hear more of it, the backlog is all available on both Spotify and YouTube. If you're on Spotify, then all you need to do is search for GB Gaming Podcast and it should pop up there. If you want to hear it on YouTube, all you need to do is go onto youtube.com/gamerbhoy. One word, that's GAMERBHOY. All my podcasts are there, as well as other content on my YouTube channel, which you may or may not already be aware of. That includes reviews, rants, let's plays, among others. If you want to see all that content, then like I said, go to GB Gaming via www.youtube.com/gamerbhoy, GAMERBHOY. And with that said, thanks very much for taking the time to listen to this. This has been Dave talking to you on GB Gaming, where video games come first. Thanks again, and I will see you whenever I see you. See you later.